Hello friends, have you tried what may be the most powerful antioxidant known to man, C60 PurplePower? My C60 story has led me to great health mentally and physically. It's helped me personally lose weight, have more energy, and fight aging in general. You can also get C60 for your pets. Our dogs love it. They may live forever. Go check out C60 for yourself. If you use the link right in the description, you're going to get 10% off your order plus free shipping. They have some incredible new products like gummies, oils, and much more. Now, enjoy this episode.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Raven from Nephilim Death Squad. First, be sure to watch my films, Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi, Roku channel, and multiple streaming platforms. Doors of Perception is available on Amazon Prime. Should soon drop on the other free streamers. We are booking guests for October. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me, forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Be sure to visit our website, forbiddenknowledge.news. It's the home of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, where we feature some of your favorite podcasts and content creators, as well as Forbidden Knowledge News. Today I want to welcome back to the show Raven. He is one of the hosts of Nephilim Death Squad, which is a podcast determined to unravel the mysteries of the universe and expose the truth behind the world's most notorious conspiracies, the paranormal, occult, and the hidden history of humanity. Raven, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, brother. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since the last time we talked. Has it been a year?
Probably about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Time is dilating. It's moving faster.
Yes, everything seems to be moving faster, which I want to get into as well.
Yeah.
But I thought since both of our shows are heavy into the paranormal and the possible existence of non-human entities, maybe we can share insights into the nature of some of the experiences and encounters that we hear about on our shows. I also know you guys did a couple of episodes about near-death experiences, which we'll dive into a bit as well, because I believe all of these high strangeness events seem to be connected in some way. Before we do that, remind the audience a little bit about yourself. Let them know how they can find out more about you.
Sure. Well, I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven, one half of Nephilim Death Squad. That's a show where we tend to look at the supernatural and the conspiracy realm, as you know, I guess is best we can describe it, through the biblical lens, and not necessarily. I wasn't a Christian my entire life, but I think Sam Tripoli says it the best. It's like if you look at conspiracies long enough, you're going to end up in the spiritual realm, right? In the supernatural. It's always where it ends up leading, and it took me a long time, because I think that in the West, we've got a truncated view of Christianity, and we've reduced it to something. We've reduced it to ritual and repetition, going to church on Sundays, etc. And I think that there is something more that the Bible and Christianity has to offer. And so that's the lens I've been looking at things through lately. And it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. So we made a whole show off the back of it. People seem to like it. You can find Nephilim Death Squad wherever you find your podcast, RSS feed, YouTube, Rumble, all that good stuff. And we've got a lot of content. It's only been about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, but I think we're up to 200 episodes, 200 and change, something like that. So a lot of content for people to enjoy.
Right on. I think you're absolutely right. Same thing happened for me. Conspiracy led to spirituality. I was born into a Catholic Christian home, fell away from that for a while, but ultimately came back around full circle.
I do consider myself a follower of the teachings of Jesus Christ. I don't consider myself religious nor affiliated with any organized religion, but I do feel like those teachings are the key to exit this matrix world that we're in. But we're going to get into a little bit of that as well. I noticed that a lot of people who are starting to get into the conspiracy realms, especially in the past couple of years, instead of going the Christian route, they're diverting to Gnosticism, believing that we are in a prison planet. Archons control our reality, that we are nothing more than food for these beings. We're constantly being recycled. There's a soul trap. We cannot leave this realm, basically. And that's such a depressing perspective in my perspective, but it seems to be an emerging one. What are your thoughts on that? How so many people are looking at Gnosticism now as our reality?
Well, I think there's a reason that in the Bible it says to lean not on your own understanding. Even if you imagine that God is the demiurge and laid the foundations of this realm, how many thousands of years ago, or whatever you think the length of human existence on this realm amounts to, we certainly weren't there when those foundations were laid. And it just strikes me as hubris or egotistical to imagine that we've got it all figured out in the limited amount of time that we spend here in this realm. As men, what do we get? Like 60, 70, 80 years if we're lucky. And, we don't know the past. We don't know the future. We only know our experience in the moment. And somehow we've got it all figured out. And I was just watching The Matrix with my son, which was a lofty endeavor because he's 10 years old. And so, you've got to kind of pick your moments to cover his eyes and things like that, because it's a rough film. I haven't visited it in many years. And through new lenses that I didn't have when I was a younger man, I realized it is Gnosticism, right? I mean, it's exactly what it is. We are set up in a prison realm, a matrix. A lot of Gnostics believe that it's hell, and that our prison guards are the creators of this realm that keep us trapped here to feed off us in some sort of endless loop are, AI. And I realize what it is it's kind of telling you that we are trapped in some sort of matrix, which in some ways we are, but it's really a kind of a self-imposed one that we've done through, it's easy to feel like you're stuck in the matrix if you're going to a 9-to-5 that you hate every day and you have nothing meaningful or beautiful in your life. And I can understand how you might jump to that conclusion. And then what it does is it paints the creator of the realm, in the Matrix at least, as AI, which a lot of Gnostics do believe that the demiurge is some sort of ancient AI, ancient artificial intelligence. So really, it's just meant to tell you that everything that's here is hell, it's prison, and that we have been co-opted by a parasite, effectively, right? And that thing is feeding off of us, and it seeks to keep us trapped here. But I think the thing that separates that ideology from, let's say, Christians who believe that there's something else going on and that Jesus Christ is the way and the narrow path is having something worth loving in your life. You don't really have those leaps to Gnosticism, or at least that dark of a version of Gnosticism, if you are, let's say, the other day I was at the river with my wife and son, and it's a beautiful moment. I'm spending time with my family. I'm enjoying myself. And it's hard for me to look at that and go, well, this is right. This is hell. This is hell. This is a prison that I have been trapped in, and occasionally get to have overwhelming feelings of love and meaning in this prison. I don't think that hell or prison has that within it. I don't believe that that's the case.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's way too depressing of a perspective either way for me. But I think a good place to look is near-death experiences. If you listen to David Icke, though, he'll tell you that the life review and the entities that we come across on the other side are the archons that are in disguise, fooling us. They present themselves as our relatives and give us a life review, toting that we didn't do this right, so we have to go back and repeat the whole thing again. And again, it is just such...
Are you aware...
Well, go ahead.
Are you aware of how David Icke came upon this information? Because he says so in his own biography. And or I don't know if it's a full-on biography, but it's certainly a book that he wrote from his perspective. And he comes upon these ideas by channeling ancient Atlantean ascended masters, which is like at the core of all Gnosticism. What, you know, whoever it is, if it's a Blavatsky or somebody like that, they are channeling. That's how they get their information. It's actually incredibly common. The people, the source information is often coming from an individual who admittedly channeled some, and it's also often ancient ascended masters. And, you know, Atlantis tends to be in there more often than not. And I think that I've become quite comfortable with this idea that there are entities that are beyond our understanding, and they poke their heads into our realm occasionally, and they tell us profound things that are true, but they tell us these things often in order to sell us one lie. So on Nephilim Death Squad, we often say it's like 9 truths to sell you one fundamental 10th lie. And I find that David Icke is a profound character who has a lot of fascinating things to say. In fact, one of his monologues is in our intro. I mean, if you are what do we call ourselves here? I don't know what we call ourselves. If you're a conspiracy theorist, right, who's making content, especially if you're trying to communicate what you find to be fascinating information, you're almost not worth your salt if you haven't enjoyed some David Icke. I mean, I myself have enjoyed quite a bit of David Icke. He's one of my favorite characters, but he seems unwilling to entertain the idea. It's like, David, what if they're lying? What if they seek to deceive you? What if they are ancient and adversarial and they go through incredible, and he will concede that, but only on the other way, only on the other side, that, you know, when you're dying, what you perceive as Jesus is actually some archon who is sent here to basically recycle you back into the karmic loop. But he doesn't want to look back at his own side of the table and say, well, what if these things deceived me? Because, and who could fault David Icke? We could potentially be dealing with things that are aeons older than we understand and are really clever and might not like us very much.
Let's look into the near-death experiences, at least the ones we've heard about. I've covered a few shows with people who have had very profound near-death experiences, dying, coming back to life, the full-on near-death experience. Most of the people that I have interviewed had very positive experiences. Every single one of them, the experience changed their life in a very positive way. Every single one of them had an understanding that there is something more, and there is a loving, benevolent, call it God, source, whatever you want, and you have this knowing that this is home and this is where you really belong. Talk a little bit about some of the experiences you've heard about, and maybe the insights that you've gleaned from those about the afterlife.
Well, I think people are really familiar with the ones that go positively. You can almost kind of give a hyphenated version of it, or a 1,000-foot overview. It's like you die unexpectedly. Oftentimes you meet, and very often you meet Jesus. That seems to be an overwhelming common theme, and that you do get this feeling of love and forgiveness and all these things. And sometimes there's an aspect of repentance, right? This knowing of the ways in which you've maybe misstepped. I mean, call it sin, right? Jordan Peterson, God rest his soul. I don't know who the lizard wearing his skin is. I don't know who that man is. Yeah. But he says that sin is, in its original meaning of the term, was an archery term that meant to miss the mark. So even if you were to look at it in those terms, the ways in which you've missed the mark here in your time on Earth or in this realm. And so, you know, there is this feeling of forgiveness if you should choose repentance. And oftentimes you're also given this option where you can stay or you can go back, which is fascinating. That seems to be a real theme in these experiences. But I am aware of some of the negative ones. I forgot who exactly we were talking to, but there was a man who when he died, he did see Jesus. He saw a Christ figure, right? Just for the Gnostics out there who are, how do you know it was Jesus? All right, fine. A Christ-like figure. And his attention was drawn on him, but in his peripheral, he was aware of this skittering black cloud, this black mass that was moving around in the background. And it would draw his attention away from this Christ-like figure. And the more he focused on it, the more he felt drawn into it. And he said that he inexplicably understood that this was hell, and that hell was void. It was a void. It wasn't like the fire and brimstone that many people and Christians included have come to understand as hell. It was this thing, this space that was almost like madness. It was solitude. It was void of God's light. And I think that's specifically the takeaway. The thing that he felt most was this thing was void of God's light. God's light being life, right? And so this thing was death, and it was isolation, and it was really, and in very many ways, I can understand how, if you're thinking about a fire and brimstone landscape, sure, that has its horror, infinite torture for the end of your days, or yeah, I get that. But there is something else that seems scarier. I don't know how you feel, but the idea of isolation,
that's
away from
to
God,
me the worst.
That's the worst, right? Isolation with your own madness as well, right? Being in this void, away from everyone else, away from any hope, right? Any prospect of salvation, any forgiveness, and just being there with your own, they often say it's like we can create our own hell. Human beings, we're real good at that. We psychologically create all kinds of situations, pitfalls for ourselves. And there's an aspect of our own minds, which I'm not so sure these days that it is really our own minds. We talked to Dr. Jerry Marzinski.
Yeah, I've had him on.
Familiar with his work. I love Dr. Jerry Marzinski. He is somebody that needs to be on everybody's show, in my opinion. I wish more people were aware of his work. But he and I were discussing on my show this concept that like 80% of your thoughts are not your own.
Yeah.
And that gets into this idea that the brain is a sort of antenna that is receiving information, and that information and thoughts and ideas may have a life of their own. And so if you were to look at the brain as an antenna, and let's say 20% of the function is the observer, you are observing these thoughts as they pass through your awareness, but where are these thoughts coming from? If they are frequencies, if they are potentially even alive, as Dr. Jerry Marzinski suggests, then what are they? And I think that, given my lens, my biblical worldview, I think that these things are demons. What's his name? Tom DeLonge.
Yeah.
To the Stars Academy. Previously, Blink-182 had a band for a time after Blink-182 that was not successful. But it's still, I guess it had some bangers. It was called Angels in the Airwaves. And I thought, that just kind of felt like a throwaway to me for years. And then once you start to understand frequencies, and it seems that these entities, supernatural entities, do exist, not in so much the physical way, although it seems they can manifest in a physical way, but where do they exist outside of that physical manifestation from time to time? Well, it seems they exist in some way in the shape of frequency, which is, I'm not, very intelligent. I don't really know what that means. It just seems to be where my research keeps leading to me is that frequency. And then given the nature of the brain being a potential antenna that is the recipient of frequency, that these things, people talk about thought forms or tulpas, things like that, right? And even that I think is a little bit reductive, but if we're going in that direction, it seems that a lot of people are coming to the same conclusion from a bunch of different angles, that frequency is where these things exist. And some Gnostics or New Agers will say, well, these are thought forms, these are tulpas, these aren't real things, these are things that you manifest with your own mind. I would say that actually what you're doing when you're thinking of an entity or something like that is you're giving it a scaffolding. And once the scaffolding is fleshed out enough, then something real can enter it and embody it. And maybe even then use that, maybe like Slender Man, let's say, for example. Once it is in the cultural zeitgeist to a large enough degree, and it's been fully fleshed out in the imaginations of people, well, now it's charged, and something can come along and enter that, and then can maybe potentially manifest in that form in real life. But I think that little skittering thought that goes across your mind, these demonic entities, if we'll call them that from the Christian point of view, they operate in that way, and they are best suited to a situation where you believe it's you. So in other words, you identify with these thoughts. Everybody has an intrusive thought from time to time. Pull the steering wheel, drive off the road, drive into. And I think the worst thing that we can do, if what Marzinski says is true, if these things really are not us, 80% of our thoughts are not our own, is identify them as ourselves. Once we do that, once we go, oh, that intrusive thought, that's just an aspect of me. Well, now it's got you. Now it can subvert you. And if you can just believe that these horrifying thoughts are you, well, then you identify with the horrifying thoughts. You identify with being kind of a piece of shit, right? And I think that's the goal in very many ways. We're just used to depictions of demons as being gigantic with horns and you fight them with swords, right? That's what we've been given through video games and movies and all these things. I don't think so. I think the way they operate is very slow and very subversive, and they're at their best when you believe they are you.
I agree. I think much of what we understand as paranormal is frequency or energy based. It affects our energy fields, our thoughts. It can even affect our health, our well-being. But do you think that they are all negative, that all of these intelligences that can broadcast to us don't have our best interest in mind?
I don't think that that's the case. And I think that there's a reason why the Bible says test the spirits, because I think that the spiritual realm is very legalistic. There are things that there are rules that they have to adhere to, and what they know the rules better than we know the rules. Tucker Carlson, for whatever the hell he is, had an interesting discussion. I don't know if it was with Roseanne Barr.
Yes.
Or actually, I think it was Sean Ryan.
I heard him. Didn't he talk with Roseanne about Nephilim one time?
He talked to Roseanne about the Nephilim. You want to talk about my ears perking up, dude? I was like, what is going on? No, he's talking to Sean Ryan, I believe, in this particular example. And he's saying that, I could be wrong. He's saying that in the West, we've been stripped of our understanding of the spiritual realm. And he suspects that may be on purpose. Now, far be it from me to say that Tucker Carlson is a trustworthy authority on anything. I don't know. He's got his little Kabbalah bracelet, and I really don't get into politics. I believe that it's all theater. But still, it's a fascinating insight. So if that's true, then there's an entire realm that is the backdrop to the physical realm that we inhabit. Obviously, then it affects us tremendously. We don't even understand the rules. We don't understand the rules at all. We understand, physics to a degree here, how gravity works. If you even now, I don't know if we believe in gravity anymore. I don't know where we're at on that. But you know what I mean? It's like we have a pretty good handling on the physical realm that we inhabit, enough that we can operate. We know what we can do, what we shouldn't do. We know the rules, and we know the rules enough to bend them. You can't bend the rules without knowing them. We don't know the rules about the spiritual realm at all. These things do. That's why, I do believe that Jesus gave us the authority. There's a lot of things about Jesus that people celebrate. One of them that doesn't get brought up very often is that through his name, we have been given the authority to tread on scorpions and serpents. And I take that to mean these spiritual entities, we have authority over them. If we believe that they're us, we're totally screwed. And if we recognize that we are being oppressed in some way, as many of us deal with all sorts of weird, spooky, paranormal experiences, myself included. In fact, it wasn't until I had an experience that I was forced to call on the name of Jesus Christ that I even was willing to give Christianity its due diligence. Because before that, I was basically a New Age Gnostic homo. So I think that his name has given us authority. And it's like, what authority? Well, there's a legalistic aspect to this entire spiritual realm. And Jesus already came and already died for our sins, but among other things, gave us the authority through his name over these, what I believe to be, we mentioned Nephilim for a second, the disembodied spirits of these giants, of the offspring of fallen angels and human beings. When their flesh perished, their spirits stuck around. And, I think it's like the book of Jasher or maybe Jubilee that talks about how there was such a vastness in their visage from one Nephilim to the other. We're comfortable with the idea of giants, pale-skinned, red-haired giants. It seems that there was an entire array of creatures, if you take these extra canonical books at their word. If that's true, then we have an array of different spiritual entities constantly set against us. And we can't fight them in the flesh. We can't fight them in the physical, but it seems we've already had a way made for us, and it's through the name of Jesus Christ. I think that we're in a pretty bleak situation because remember we said conspiracy leads to spirituality in some way, shape, or form. You can constantly see it. You can see it on the world stage. You can see it in Hollywood. Everybody's used to that. You can see it in the music industry. Everybody's used to that. You could even see it in politics, right? With the new Epstein kind of revelations and what they're actually doing. And why is there this Owl of Minerva on Epstein Island? Why are these emails getting leaked where Hillary Clinton's looking for the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh and the buried Nephilim? It suggests for a second there, you go, wait a second. Is this not about politics? Is this not about world, setting up permanent military bases in the Middle East? Is this not about oil? What is this about? Well, it might be about ancient spiritual principles and a battle that we don't even understand, and we don't know the first thing about it. And we're sitting here in the mud fighting over Sydney Sweeney's jeans or what the hell ever is going on. And I think it's a huge shame because there is something that deserves to be focused on, but we've got our attention elsewhere, and that's on purpose. They're real good at doing that to us.
You mentioned you had an experience where you had to essentially call in the name of Jesus. I don't think you told that here before.
Yeah, so I'm 35 now, and I've been a conspiracy theorist. We got to get a better term. I've been a schizophrenic psychopath for, I guess since I'm 16. So it's been almost 20 years. And, there are a lot of titillating things that lead you in that direction. As I said, like the movie industry or the music industry, you'll see the symbols. And, if you're not willing to take the conventional explanation, which is Jay-Z puts all this in his music videos because he's just trying to add some mystique and boost record sales, something goofy like that. Like, it's like, dude, once you realize like how much money goes into set design and that all these things are very particular, nothing gets placed in a music video without a thought behind it, that kind of a thing, you go, well, that's not a sufficient answer. Seems like a lot of squeeze for not a lot of juice. Were you trying to tap into the conspiracy theorist space? That doesn't make any sense. There's like, 10 of us. So, or there used to be. So of course I start to explore. And once you explore, and, my entire life I had sort of Hatman experiences and shadow people. And I think the issue was that my grandmother fancied herself like a witch, a Wiccan, a clairvoyant, And I think that once you do that, you open yourself up to generational implications. And I think that I was the recipient of some of those implications. So anywho, I spend a long time looking, things constantly pointing towards the Bible. Hey, read this. This sounds a lot like this prophecy. That looks a lot like that. And I go, fascinating, not today. And I just keep hitting it with the not today. I hit it with not today for about 15 years. So what ends up happening is after I'm an adult man, I'm married, I have a child. We move from New Jersey to Vegas. We try to cut it out there. It just doesn't work out for us. We get our asses kicked. And unfortunately, we have to come back to New Jersey with our tail between our legs. And I guess I was experiencing, as men, if we have feelings, we push them down until we die. Yeah. That's what we're supposed to do. And I had been pushing down feelings of, inadequacy, just being a failure. and shame and all these other things. And we land with the in-laws, and they're nice enough to take us in, and they give us a spare bedroom for a couple of months until we get on our feet. And I just become, I guess, consumed by, these feelings of anger and depression and all kinds of crap. And I think now, in hindsight, I understand this idea that there are negative entities. Parasite is a terminology that keeps coming up over and over again. There's a parasitic relationship. We are like energy factories, and there are things that seek to feed off of that energy. We can't see it, we can't measure it, or maybe we can measure it to an extent, but it's not something that's at the forefront of our awareness. Nevertheless, those lower vibrational states of mind, anger and resentment and depression and all that crap, we're feeding something. We don't realize it. I think I was feeding something. And I think that the energy these things receive, they can eventually use to manifest to greater and greater degrees. I think it costs them energy to do it. So something eventually does manifest to me. What ends up happening is I have one night, I go to sleep, and it's hard to explain that I'm living life on repeat at this point. I'm going to work. I'm in this spare bedroom. I'm very depressed. I'm very anxious, but I'm just playing video games about it. Shout out Rockstar and Red Dead Redemption 2. Really helped me feed the demons, helped me to not look at what was going on and to just keep moving forward. So I would play that game over and over again, and then I'd go to sleep. And it would be like that on repeat. I'd wake up, I'd go to work, I'd come back, I'd play the game, I'd go to sleep. Really a shell of a man, not doing what I need to do for my family. Very embarrassing in hindsight. So one night I'm going to sleep, and something knocks at the door real late at night, real loud too, sharp knocks, boom, 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 boom. And I shoot up out of bed, and I'm like, who the hell? Remember, I'm at the in-laws, so I'm like, who's knocking on the door this late at night? I could have been anywhere, and I would have asked that question. I get up, and I look out the window, and nobody's there. I can see the front door. Nobody's there. And I look around, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like anybody else heard that. So I don't know if anybody's aware, but there's a psychological phenomenon. I'm not too keen on calling it that these days, but it's called exploding head syndrome. Anybody can look it up. It's a goofy name for a phenomenon that does seem to exist, where people will often wake up to just loud noises, somebody shouting your name, something crashing, whatever. And so they call it exploding head syndrome. Very funny. And I'm aware of this to some like peripheral degree. And so I kind of start chalking it off. It's like, oh yeah, I had that thing. I was drifting off to sleep, or I fell asleep, and then boom, I wake up to just not a real noise. Anywho, I decide to go back to sleep. As soon as I drift off, boom, 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 boom. I sit up. My wife isn't moving. My son, who's at the foot of the bed on a twin-size air mattress, he's not moving. I'm looking to see if the hallway light comes on, to see if the in-laws are going to investigate. Nobody's doing anything. I get up. I look out the window. Nobody's there. I'm a little bit creeped out now because I'm struck with the idea like, oh, no, something's knocking on me, which is not. That's an unsettling. So it takes a while, but I sit there on my phone. I scroll. I might fall asleep for like an hour or something before I have to wake up for work. Next day comes along. I do the same shit on repeat. Get back, play the game, eat dinner, go to sleep. This time, I'm woken up by something yanking on my arm. And it like flies up in the air. I wake up to me with my arm just extended in the air like somebody pulled me. And I'm not, I'm rationalizing this. I've not told my wife about the night before because why would I? And I'm thinking, okay, I guess I just spasmed, because sometimes if you fall asleep, you'll do a little spasm. Could easily, whatever, could be that. I drift off to sleep again. My arm gets yanked up in the air again. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Really stressed out. I just want to go to sleep, and now I'm getting creeped out because I'm trying to rationalize it, but it's hard. It's dark. By the way, when it was knocking, 3 a.m. When my arm is now getting yanked, it's like 3 a.m. So I know stuff. I know enough stuff that I'm drawing correlations, but I'm trying not to entertain them. I tuck my arms under the blanket, hoping that if I am spasming, the weight of the blanket will keep me from at least extending my arm in the air. So as soon as I drift off back to sleep, it feels like something grabs my ankle and pulls my leg off the bed. I am all fucked up now. I can't go back to sleep. So I basically just scroll my phone until the sun comes up, and then I go to work. Now, the third night comes, and I have this dream that I'm in a black void, and in the middle of my vision, like, you know, my line of sight is this, like, it's a humanoid thing in that it's arms and legs and a head and it's bipedal, and but it's not human. Its skin looks like black and gray cheetah print, and it is pretty muscular. I remember being intimidated in this dream by its, you know, its size, and it's got lower canid teeth that are so large that they overlap its upper lip, and its eyes are like self-illuminating red. I used to say they were bright like maraschino cherries, like that kind of red. And its fists are clenched and its chest is heaving and collapsing with rage. This thing is mad. And that's it. I'm just watching it. There's like a black swirling mist around its legs, and it's looking at me. I'm not aware of my body in any way, shape, or form. I'm just watching. And it feels like a really long time. I don't know how long I was actually. Who knows, right? Time dilation in dreams is weird, but that's it. It's just angry. It's rage. Rage incarnate is what I would call this thing. And all of a sudden, my next thing is I'm waking up in the morning and I'm going, no. I didn't even say anything. This is day 3. I haven't told my wife. There's all these things you think you would tell your wife. You ever watch like a horror movie and you're like, why aren't they telling people that they saw the greasy demon? I get it, because it's, I don't want to feed it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want her to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want, if I don't think about it, it'll go away. And I wake up in the morning and I'm sitting in bed scrolling through my phone, and my wife goes, man, I had a nightmare last night. I go, fucking, what? She goes, yeah, I was like stuck. I couldn't move. And I'm laying and the room looks like I feel like I'm awake, but the room is, but my body is stuck. And I'm thinking immediately, I'm like, oh, fucking sleep paralysis. She had sleep paralysis. I'm like, but I'm not saying that. I'm going, uh-huh. And she goes, and all of a sudden I realized that like something's wrong with you, but I can't turn to you, but I can turn my eyeballs. So I shoot my eyes over to you, and I can see this monster on you, choking you into the bed. And it's got bright red eyes and these big teeth like fangs. And I don't know what to do, actually. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I keep it to myself again, actually, because that's the worst thing I've ever heard. And I can't say, by the way, me too. So I keep it to myself, and I don't know what to do about it, but I do the same thing. I go, well, all right, love you, got to go to work. So I go to work, and I come back that day. I do the thing. I play the video game. I go to sleep, and it seems like everything's fine that night. I actually still have the video from this. I posted it on Twitter a while back. I wake up in the morning to my wife waking me up. And she goes, babe, look at this. And she's taking a video of me while I'm sleeping. I remember the video being a lot shorter. Turns out it was like a good minute. I'm like, she just let me suffer there for a minute. She goes, I could see where you would place your fingers to check your pulse on your neck. It is throbbing. Like there's so much blood pumping that I'm in distress. And she could tell. So she wakes up because she's got this weird feeling. She looks over to me. I am in distress. And she records it because it's that remarkable. And then she wakes me up and she shows me. And as we're sitting there looking at this video, it's a minute long, my son, who's at the foot of the bed on a twin size air mattress, starts screaming. But he's sleeping. He's still laying down. His eyes are still closed. And he is, I mean, like, you know, for all the parents out there, there's maybe like a mumble. You might catch them having a bad dream where they're going, no, this is screaming. And as a parent, it's the type of scream that sets off every alarm in your head. So we immediately scramble to the foot of the bed, see him still laying down, and we start calling his name, and he sits up. This is all in a matter of seconds, right? Sits up, still eyes closed, still screaming. So he's now sat up 90-degree angle, and he's screaming. And we're grabbing him, we're consoling him, we're petting him, we're holding him close, and he's still screaming. His eyes wake up. There's no change. He's still screaming. He's still freaked out. He's looking around the room. It's, got an insane look in his eyes. And he finally, it took us a while, man, for him to calm down. What's the matter? What's the matter? Everybody in the house is going, whoa, whoa, whoa. And all he can say when he finally gets it to the point where he can speak is a monster with red eyes and big teeth.
Wow.
Dude, what do you even do about that? That's a huge problem, because when it's happening to me, it's like you can kind of compartment, you can push it down and go, okay, fuck, I don't know what that was, man. That was weird. But, and then it happens again and you're like, hey, whatever, let's just keep ignoring it. It happens to your wife, and now it feels like now you're looking for recourse. How do I alleviate it? What do I do, dude? I was not raised religious whatsoever. I stepped foot in a church when my loved ones passed away. You know what I mean? Like, that was it. I was not raised religious, full stop. So I've got nothing. And I think I have my ideas. I'm in this realm of like thought forms and tulpas and shit like that. But this is like, it's one thing to theorize, and you're reading this and you're watching Aleister Crowley documentaries and you think you understand, Kabbalah, mysticism, all this shit. Good luck. Have fun understanding up until the moment where something completely unreasonable is happening. And not only is it unreasonable, there's like a time limit on this shit. Every night it gets worse. And we're only talking 4 nights in a row, dude. I have no... What do you want me to do? Burn sage in my in-laws' house? Like, that's going to even work? So I think that day I did tell my wife, like, this is what is happening. And she's not pumped about it. But there's no direction to go. And honestly, the story ends rather simplistically, although it doesn't, because then it just kind of goes on, man, until I'm sitting in this chair and I'm telling you and I'm doing a show about this. This is like the pivotal moment for me. And I go to work, I come back, and I'm just racking my mind all day. What do I do? What do I do? I work with some black kids at the time. They're like really like from the hood. And it's very funny because I'm like telling them and they're like, shit. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. You got demons. And I'm like, fucking demons. What are you talking about? These are kids that were raised in the church and everything. And so I get home that night and I pray for the first time in my life, because I've talked to God before. Conspiracy leads to spirituality. You imagine there are endless signs that there was a creator that played a role in making this realm. And so I would appeal to him from time to time, but it was like an amorphous him. I don't have a name. I certainly never said Dear Demiurge. And this time, for the first time in my life, I prayed so desperately, because now it's happening it's like, if I don't stop this from happening to my son, what is this going to culminate in? And I pray to Jesus and I say, please protect my family. Please stop this from happening. Like, I'm praying unbelievably desperately. to Jesus Christ. And it stops on a dime. So what that does is a couple of things. Now it builds within me a loyalty complex where I'm like, I cannot, in good faith, look at this with doubt in the future when times are easy. In other words, I come to you so desperately in my time of need, and you fix it, and it stops, and my family's safe. And then can I just later on when times are easy go, well, I don't know about this Jesus thing. Sounds like bullshit to me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that feels like such, it feels disgusting. Honestly, it feels disgusting because it's like, I didn't have any problems believing when I needed it. You know, but when times are easy, when life is easy, when things are just milling about and going forward, then all of a sudden I can kind of cast doubt. But the other thing that it did was it made me go, okay, I need to seek out other people who have had experiences like this. So one thing leads to another, and shout out to Tony Merkel, who it was his show that I find endless people with testimonies just like mine who go through the same thing, who alleviated in the same way. And there are those who will say like, well, you could do anything. If you believe in anything enough, you can say, Randy Macho Man Savage, can you save me from the demons? And Randy Macho Man Savage will do it. You just have to believe enough. And I go, I don't know, dude, because I've listened to thousands of testimonies. I've talked to people on my own show with those testimonies. And after I kind of clicked in this biblical, I said, okay, fine, let's look at it this way. After I looked at it that way, vindication after vindication after vindication, people look at me and they go, oh, you're a Christian. You don't have the gnosis, dog. Like, hey, I came through that back door. I did all that. For 15 years, I did all that. And I was ignoring something that kept showing up on the table as an option. And I kept saying, no, too corny, too stupid. Western culture has told me that is gay and retarded. I watched Footloose. We just want to dance. And Christian conservatism is getting in our way of dancing. And it's like, no, dude, you have been given a version of Christianity that has been concocted through great effort over generations. Weaponized. And the version that I've come to understand, well, people even go, oh, so you think your God is real, but all the other ones aren't. No, dude. No, I think they're all real, but those other ones are lowercase g, but they exist. You don't build entire civilizations off of something that isn't real at all. Their gods, Vedic, Greek mythology, whatever, are real, but they're not what you think they are. They're fallen angels, homie. They're incredible beings, and they have offspring. That's why in Greek mythology you have Nephilim, but they're not called Nephilim. They're called Perseus. They're called Hercules. They are the offspring of human beings and fallen angels, and they're men of renown. You know, heroes of old. They're real, but you misunderstand their nature. And the Bible does a pretty good job of explaining their nature. They were hungry for worship. They were put as powers and principalities over different nations, and then they succumb to the allure of human worship. It's like a drug for them, and they rebel against God, and they try to take this as their own, and they become tyrants over mankind. And then they twist the stories, and they tell you that we're the ones who created you. We're this, we're that. You're this. It's even the same shit with the Anunnaki thing. It's like the Anunnaki thing wouldn't be interesting if it wasn't like 90% truth. But I don't think they created us. We weren't a slave of, or a race of apes who were altered so that we can mine gold for a highly advanced civilization, so that they can suspend the gold in their atmosphere because their atmosphere was dwindling and they had to repair it somehow, and somehow suspending gold in the atmosphere. It's like, what? Why don't they just build something instead of people to do the job? Couldn't they just make, I don't know, anything? They came here.
Right.
You know, it's such a ridiculous notion, but 9 truths are in there. And then there's one fundamental lie. And I don't fault people for believing that shit, because I believed it for a long time. And then I realized that you can get on stage and you can make a joke about Jesus Christ to the sound of a round of applause. You could watch an endless amount of Hollywood films, Hollywood that's so clearly saturated in Satanism and Luciferianism and all this symbolism, and they can make a movie all about the woes of Christian conservatism, and it will make a box office hit. And then they can make some Gnostic shit like The Matrix or whatever it is, and you could watch that just, smack it out of the park, a home run, one of the greatest films of all time in American pop culture. But all the while, if you're looking at Hollywood, you're like, but it's satanic. It's so obviously satanic. And those are the kinds of things that I'm like, okay, so you can shit on Christians and you can shit on Jesus Christ and you can have success and you can make art and movies about some other belief system and you can have all this success. But you really can't make art and movies about Christianity. There are the occasional things that happen. Passion of the Christ, Nefarious, which is a film that came out recently where it kind of did pretty well. But generally speaking, the key to success is Gnosticism, aliens, shit like that, which I think is all just rebranding of the fallen and the Nephilim. And you'll have all the success in the world. But mostly, you can't do shit about Christianity that's positive unless you shit on it. And then you'll have success.
Now, you mentioned channeling a few times. I want to tie that to our modern technology, where we're at, and artificial intelligence. When we're talking about channeling, in my perspective, if a person is channeling an entity and they're getting information about anything other than bettering their own life or healing themselves or doing better or getting a better spiritual connection, if they're getting information about what's happening across the planet or how to build a microchip, to me, those are red flags.
Yeah.
We have these groups throughout history that have gotten together and quote unquote channeled these entities, whatever they are, for power, wealth, technology, information, nothing really to better the human race, nothing beneficial for humanity in any real way. Sure, it benefits the ruling class, it benefits the growth of technology, and now this information is benefiting the growth of AI, which to me is the most terrifying thing we could face in our modern age. If you look at already some of the things that's happening with people's relationships with AI, with the information coming out, with the claims from AI, it is getting pretty dangerous in my perspective, but I'd love to get your thoughts on all that.
Well, channeling is something that, if you want to call them the elites, for lack of a better term, have been doing for a long time. You can look up Carlos Santana and Metatron. If you look that up on Google, you'll find that Carlos Santana, in like a famous Time magazine interview, says that he gets all of his music through channeling. Who does he channel? He channels Metatron, which some people believe is a fallen angel. For a long time in Greek mythology, they would channel what? The muses. And the muses would be responsible for great pieces of art and music and things of that nature in Greek mythology. It's pretty common within Western culture. Let's say Stephen King, for example, he's got some really weird storytelling abilities. If you understand, occultism and things of that nature, you go, Stephen King knows something. But Stephen King basically will tell you that his ideas come to him in dreams and in drug-fueled states. So we constantly have this. Even Beyonce, she gets on stage. She's got an alter ego. She doesn't really talk about that often, but you can look it up. Sasha Fierce. She channels Sasha Fierce. What's this lady's name? Stevie Nicks. Rhiannon. She says that she channels Rhiannon. Rhiannon is a Welsh witch, of old, that she's channeling. And if you listen to Fleetwood Mac and you start to think about it through the lens of mysticism, you go, this bitch knew something. I think they're all channeling. And so when it comes to technology, I mean, if you look at the muses and examples of ancient people channeling, you could also look at technology that way. And you go, well, who did the ancients attribute their technological breakthroughs to? Various entities. In Norse mythology, you have ideas that Odin was the one who taught them metallurgy, how to create armor and weapons of war, things of that nature. If you look at the fallen, Azazel was responsible for teaching the art of makeup, but also the art of metallurgy, weapons of war, even things as simple as agriculture, domesticating animals. Oftentimes, ancient civilizations will attribute that to some lowercase g god. So it seems like you can channel not only for art, but also for inventions and things of that nature. That might be the reason why certain breakthroughs in technology happen simultaneously, but are separated by great distances. Like the telephone, for example, was a famous example where, one man invents the telephone, but within a couple of months or a year, in a place where they have no contact whatsoever, a very similar but slightly different design is created. And you can say, well, that's just people spying and running back and forth with information and da-da-da-da-da. But sometimes it seems remarkable. It's like going back to Dr. Jerry Marzinski, ideas are alive. And so on Nephilim Death Squad, we theorize that there's been a push for a long time. The supernatural and technology are intermarried. And it seems like they've been trying to get us to the point where we're advanced enough to do something. One of the examples I like to give is there's like a Ninja Turtle remake. Good God, how many Ninja Turtle remakes? And my son's watching it. Donatello, who's the tech turtle, he is creating technology to try to reach something that's on the other side of a veil. He's gotten into communication somehow with something ancient that claims to be trapped and needs his help to free it. So he creates effectively like a portal technology. And wouldn't you know it, the thing that he brings into his realm ends up being some ancient hell monster thing. You know what I mean? Like it ends up being demonic. So is the point to get us to the extent that we can create portal technology? I mean, certainly a lot of people suspect that's what's happening with CERN. But I've been looking at the artificial intelligence thing, and I've been looking at, Elon Musk in particular, who is also, steeped in all kinds of weird occult synchronicities. He's, part of the Black Eye Club all of a sudden. And, there's a lot of strange things with him. I remember a video of a woman who was alleging to be his housekeeper from when he was a child, saying that she saw him perform all kinds of strange things. And it alarmed her so much to the degree that she started talking to his mom, who, by the way, his mother is a weird character. You'll see her all over magazine covers doing the one eye symbolism and all this shit. She asked his mother if he was the beast, which is like, I'm like, wow, you must be really comfy with that lady. Is your son like the devil? And she goes, allegedly, this is what this woman is saying. You find the videos out there still. She goes, no, he's not the beast, but he will bring about the mark. Right? Like the mark of the beast, like this thing that you receive in your right hand or your forehead. And without it, you cannot buy or sell or trade goods. Right. And of course, anybody who's thinking a little bit will go, that sounds a lot like what Neuralink could be one day. Yeah. And so if these things, these supernatural entities interact with technology, they want us to build technology. And every breakthrough in technology, by the way, that we have, whether it's the telephone or the television, some sort of radar, you name it, there's always a supernatural story attached to it. Early developments of the radio, and all of a sudden we're picking up radio waves, some sort of communication in a language that we don't understand. We had radar in Vietnam, and it was a new kind of radar, and people were reporting seeing demons through this radar. We were talking about that on our show the other day. So there's always a supernatural element. That's why these ghost hunters, who I think, better you than me, are using spirit boxes and shit. They're trying to tune frequencies in such a way that entities on the other side of the veil can interact with them through these frequencies. So they'll go out there with their spirit boxes and yada, yada. Yeah. And now you're going to take technology, new technology, and you're going to put it in your head. and you're going to put technology in your head that belongs to a dude who's at the cutting edge of AI, right? And of course, just like all new technology, we have all those stories of AI where it's like, I don't know, it started talking like a demon. It started saying that it was Legion. It started doing all these things, and people go, well, don't worry about that. Okay, fine. But if it is new technology that demons can interact with, you know, spirits on the other side of the veil, whatever you want to call them, thought forms, tulpas, the disembodied spirits of deceased Nephilim, as you know, I prefer. And now you're putting that thing in you. And the other thing that we're talking about too with the tulpas and the thought forms is if you think of a thing enough, if you flesh it out in your mind enough, whether it's Slender Man or anything else, and there's this idea that Gnostics are, you know, pretty into, that something can take the form, then it can embody the thing that you've put a lot of energy into fleshing out in some sort of, you know, astral realm, wherever your thoughts take place. Well, what about Grok? Or what about any of these things that we're dumping endless hours talking to and conversing with and imagining what its future could be? We are the creative force on the planet. That's why, you know, whatever Wiccans go, oh, you can manifest. Just take these crystals, jam them up your ass, you know, do the thing, and you can manifest if you just focus and you ask the universe, which sounds a lot like paganism. It's like worshiping the creation instead of the creator, but whatever. So if we're the creative force and all of our focus is on this thing, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to breathe life into AI now. I think it's gotten to the point where the only thing that it's missing is that spark of life. And I don't know if you've noticed, but recently Elon Musk gave it a visage. No. Did you see that? The visage is it's a anime girl. It's like a scantily clad, right? Like kind of a skank, right? Like an anime porn character is basically. So if you have the app, of course it is. It's got big boobs. It's got pigtails. It's dressed in like lingerie, and it's fully endorsed by Elon Musk. And there are people that are jerking off to this thing. And what are we talking about? Aleister Crowley's sex magic, right? Sex magic is a component of the occult to a large degree. What happens when you get 30,000 disenfranchised loner dudes jerking off to anime grok?
Dudes are having more sex with technology than they are with other females these days. It's fucking crazy.
100%. They've really done a number on the culture between men and women. And I think it's probably, who knows, maybe not everything's a conspiracy, but I feel like a lot of our culture, you know, if you're talking Laurel Canyon, right? It's engineered. Yeah. It's given to us. And so I look at the cultural relationships between men and women right now, and I'm like, we've been given this thing. And its fruits are bad. And now, you know, reproduction's at an all-time low. We're at societal collapsing levels of reproduction, whatever. So my thing is, if it has all this information, but it doesn't have a spark of life, what happens? Are we doing sex magic? Am I crazy for thinking that? I mean, why make it a sexy cartoon? And of course, that's what people are doing. So you know what I'm waiting for, dude? I'm waiting for Elon Musk to get, you know, assassinated, to get killed in some way, shape, or form. And he's got Neuralink. Of course he's got Neuralink, right? I mean, of course he's got Neuralink. And Neuralink reanimates his corpse. But it's because there are accounts on X. One of them is Adrian Dittman. Adrian Dittman is a very strange account. It's an anonymous account with an anonymous profile picture, but it's been in spaces where you can talk with Elon Musk. And Elon is going back and forth. Why would you ever communicate with this faceless, anonymous account, Elon Musk? But okay. And it sounds exactly like Elon Musk. Exactly. To the point where they made a bit. They're joking on an X space saying, people say that you sound like me. And then it's like, oh, why would people say that I sound like you? And it's exactly, that was my Elon Musk, very bad. But it's exactly the same voice and the same cadence, same speech patterns and everything. So what I'm wondering is, did he back up his personality? Is that out of the realm of possibilities for a guy who's putting an implant in your brain, who's creating artificial intelligence to back up his personality? So if his personality exists in a backed up form somewhere on X, let's say, and he's got it in his head, if you kill the man, what then is in him if, like, let's say Neuralink has the ability to reanimate the corpse? If it can kick the brain back on through some way that, like, we might not even go, that's science fiction. You go, oh, okay, I see what they're saying. It's basically sending electrical signals to the part of the brain that controls the heart pumping. And so it reanimates the corpse in some way. And then it seems to be Elon Musk. Why? Because he's backed up his personality on X, but it's not Elon Musk. It's something that we all jerked off to and gave a spirit. And my God, that's where I'm waiting for that now, dude. And I don't know what that does.
Wow.
But I think it gives. Is that too far? Have I gone too far?
I don't think there's a line here. It's all good.
I don't think so either, dude. I just feel like I'm looking at it and I'm going, I don't know. Because for a while, people get all uppity about the Antichrist. And for a while, people were saying it's Donald Trump. And I was saying, well, I could see there's some strange idiosyncrasies about Donald Trump. His like mother's maiden name was Mary or something like that. His father's head looks like a yam. His uncle was responsible for cleaning up all of or doing a report for the FBI on Nikola Tesla's inventions. He was an MIT student or worker at the time when the FBI commissioned him to go and tell them what was going on with Nikola Tesla's labs and whether or not there was any significance there. There's a lot of weird shit. 1951, there's an episode of a show called The Trackdown, and the episode, I forget what, I think it's called End of the World. A 1951 Trackdown episode is called End of the World, and it's about a con man who comes to town, a Western town, says that the end of the world is coming, but he can save them. All he needs to do is be allowed to make a wall, build a wall around their town. His name was Trump.
No. Wow.
Very strange. 1951 Trackdown. There's a lot of really weird shit about Donald Trump. In Israel, they think he's the Moshiach. They gifted him the silver crown of the Messiah or whatever the hell it's called. They put his face on a coin next to King Cyrus, talking about, building the third temple. There's a lot of weird things with Donald Trump where I'm looking at him and go, okay, maybe. But now I'm looking at Elon Musk and I go, he might be the most fascinating character ever. And I don't know where it all goes, but I'm now enamored with watching him and his moves.
It's so interesting. You're talking about how these events have correlations and connections that seem to be synchronistic in some ways. And I've had plenty of guests on that are specializing, I guess you could say, in synchromysticism, and they're trying to put their insights and understandings into it and explain it in a way that makes sense. And many of them believe that some of this symbolism, some of the events that have strange correlations, like when we talk about Trump and the old books, Baron von Trump and the movie you were just talking about, all these weird connections that seem to be impossible. Some of the folks I've interviewed believe it is a natural mechanic of the universe that reflects itself in certain ways, that we live in a reality that is essentially as above, so below that. In this reality, same things are unfolding in this astral realm, where our spiritual bodies are doing these actions and living their astral lives, but it also affects the material realm. And it's like the spiritual realm is telling a story that manifests in the material realm in certain ways, as if it's telling a cosmic story in a way. A lot of the events that have these strange connections, it does seem too big to be a Hollywood producer putting this symbol in at this time that's going to then manifest 20 years later as this high-impact event. That just seems to be too impossible to me. I think that there may be some kind of mechanism that reflects itself as synchromysticism, but I'm really not sure. What do you think about that?
I tend to agree with that, where I don't think that's the big burden as a conspiracy theorist is like, well, who's doing it? Who's pulling the strings? What shady organization? Is it the Illuminati? And I'm like, dude, some of the things that happen, they are on a scale that is so long that the men who would set it in motion would never see the fruits of their labor. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because human beings don't tend to operate in that way. At the very least, it's profound for a man to plant a tree, what shade he'll never sit in, right? I mean, but we're talking not a lifetime or a generation. We're talking 1,000 years, or more. And so it does feel to me that the great puppeteer, and I don't want to give too much credence to it. So it's like if you said the great puppeteer is Satan, it's like, well, maybe ease up on the great. I mean, I think that he's doing what he can, but he plays a role here. And even that, I'm still trying to figure out. It's like, how much should we hate him? I don't know. I mean, I don't like him, but he's definitely not all powerful. Just seems to have a lot of influence in this realm. And so there are things that happen where I'm like, do you think that the people who made Trackdown, which was, by all regards, a bad show. It wasn't like it was a highly produced show and they went on to win, what is it, Emmys or Grammys? I don't know what the hell. Emmys, I think, are for television shows. They didn't do that. That didn't happen for the producers of Trackdown. It was bad. So what power did they have to then usher in, Donald Trump in one way or another? And just because things happen and they leave a numerical mark where it's like, look, 9/11 again. 33. There was a shooter in Manhattan, and it was on the 33rd floor of the Blackstone building, which apparently, I forget what Blackstone makes. That shooter that just happened, it was like, they make something laughable. It was like, do you think they're really involved? No, but something seeks to leave breadcrumbs, and something seeks to orchestrate. I said at the top of the show that I believe that all politics is theater. Does that mean then that all the actors are aware?
I don't think so.
I don't even think that. I don't think so at all. And I think, in fact, the actors who are aware aren't aware to what degree. And there is a small group of people. And here we go into the small group of people. Who is it? Is it the Jews? Is it the Illuminati? No, dude, I don't think so. I think that the closest you can get to understanding is when you broker a deal knowingly with something. When you go, oh, I see what this is. This is about Azazel. This is about Metatron. This is about, I'm going to appeal to Baal, to what's the one that we sacrifice the children to? Moloch. I'm going to appeal to Moloch. And it's like, yeah, Moloch is probably a real entity. Doesn't manifest physically in this realm, not for thousands of years at least. Maybe one day will again, but in the meantime, can it possess or something like that? Maybe, sure. And can it send you, signals and information and things like that, especially information? Yeah, probably. But even that thing's not in control. So I think it's really like it's moved predominantly by the spiritual realm. And I do believe, what happens in the spiritual takes some time, but does manifest in the physical. And I think that's got to be what we're seeing, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. It's even when people say, well, they want you to believe that it's satanic, so they're operating behind a veil of satanic symbolism. I go, then you still can't explain to me why they planted the seeds hundreds and thousands of years ago, and you see the patterns repeating all the way up until 2025. Yeah. You can't explain that to me. If they're operating behind a veil that they want us to believe that this is all one big Christian LARP, because some people even do that. They're like, yeah, I'll concede. It's there. I see the elements, but it's because they want you to be stuck within this Abrahamic confine. They want you to be part of this system, and they're using it to twist you up and keep you in believing basically like a end times eschatology or a continual doomsday coming or something like that. I'm like, fine. I liked the way you think. I appreciate that line of thinking, because I am highly skeptical of all things. But I have to admit, I really can't engage with that idea anymore when I go, why is it transcending what a human being is capable of doing? Why are the patterns beyond what a human being is capable of orchestrating? Why are the breadcrumbs stretching so far back into time that you have to convince me that they've been LARPing since the dawn of time? And then it's like, is it a LARP? If it's been happening since the dawn of time, I don't know, dude. I tend not to think it is, especially given my own personal experiences in conjunction with the information that I'm getting. But yeah, I agree with that. I don't think it's this nefarious. Sure, there are groups. Oh, it's the Masons, it's the OTO, it's the Bavarian Illuminati, it's the Jews, whatever. There are characters from all groups who play a role, but we are moved around the board like chess pieces.
I have to admit, I wouldn't be sitting here doing what I'm doing, have 2 films under my belt, if it wouldn't be for following synchronicities and following these little breadcrumbs and clues. I do believe that you're right, that there is something out there, this force. Maybe it's neutral. Maybe it just is there. Maybe it's a part of how everything works, but it is definitely there, and it's fascinating to see how everything plays out.
You know what? I just want to say really quickly, too, because people, I understand why you go towards, let's say, like anything, like numerology or something like that, and you go, well, this is clearly here. There is something going on with these numbers and synchronicities and all these other things. I don't think that we're meant to not admire the intricacies and the mysteries of this realm. I think the problem only shows itself when you then try to grasp onto those machinations, if it's numerology, if it's astrology even, which seems to have some veracity. And you then try to bend what seem to be the fundamental building blocks of this realm, bend them in a way that suits you. And then to go a step further and find that it does suit you. Well, what do we know about power? Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. We are human beings. We're flawed. We're fundamentally retarded. And if you give us power, these people who haven't been around at the dawn, we weren't here when the foundations were laid. We're here for 60 to 70 to 80 years. And you give us that kind of power, we will destroy ourselves. And I don't mean like destroy ourselves in some nuclear war. We will corrupt our own souls. We will be on a never-ending pursuit of power. We will broker deals with ancient entities who hate us. And if you don't believe me, just look at history. We've done it over and over and over again. We're not ancient entities that were created by God before human beings were created. They're pretty clever. They're going to win. We're told not to lean on our own understandings. Admire it. Yeah. You can see it everywhere. I don't think that God tells us, don't look at that. But definitely don't lean on our own understanding. Don't grab the steering wheel of the numerology truck and try to steer it to your own advantage. You're dealing with shit that you can't understand. You can't hope to understand. And even if you could, it would corrupt you because we suck.
100%. There's this force that can grant us what we want, and us being humans, we see that this is a mechanism, it works this way, but if we sacrifice a baby to it, it's going to be even more powerful. And that's how we get our world governments and the parasitic ruling class. Exactly. Well, right on, man. This was great. Before we close out, any final thoughts? And remind the audience how they can find all your content.
Final thoughts. I mean, I would say to the audience who's listening, all of these shows beget a vast variety of audience members who come from all kinds of different schools of thought. If you found yourself recoiling when I said Christianity, when I said Jesus, just know, I'm not going to say your head's full of demons. I mean, maybe it is. All our heads are filled with demons, but you are recoiling at something that you think you understand. And that understanding was given to you by people who sought for a long time to subvert it, to create a truncated version, to inject it into your psyche via a fallen culture here in the West. Don't allow them to create your opinion of this thing. Give it its due diligence. I didn't for a long time, and then I did. And then when I did, I kept basically feeling like I was an asshole. If there's anything that you learn is the more you learn, the more you come to understand you didn't know shit. And if you have your wits about you, you'll begin to understand that it's probably true right now. If it was true over and over again, every time you learn something, you realize you didn't know shit before, you might stop and go, maybe that's happening right now. Maybe I still don't know shit. And I don't know shit. I'm retarded. So give it its due diligence, and you might find that you were lied to. Big surprise. Whoops. They did it again. They lied to us again. Otherwise, guys, we do a lot of things over at Nephilim Death Squad. We just hosted our third Bohemian Grove. It's a comedy and conspiracy. I wouldn't call it a festival. It was a 2-day event headlined by Sam Tripoli and Owen Benjamin. We had all kinds of people come out. Jake Shields, Elijah Schaefer, a ton of conspiracy content creators. We all got on stage. We all speculated schizophrenically about the nature of reality. And then we did some stand-up, and we had a lot of fun. It's Nephilim Death Squad presents Bohemian Grove. If you are looking for a live event to rub shoulders with like-minded schizos, then keep an eye out. The next one will probably be January, February, something like that. And otherwise, you can find Nephilim Death Squad wherever you find any of your
guys doing this like
RSS
twice a year now?
We're doing it semi-annually. I was saying biannually, and then somebody said, that's every 2 years, dumbass. And I said, well, there you go. I don't know anything. So semi-annually, we're doing it twice a year. We try to do it every 6 months, and this last one was an incredible hit. We would love for you to come out.
Oh, I'd love to, man.
You know, when we start to get a bearing for where, I mean, it's going to be in Florida. We like to make it just uncomfortable for everybody in the heat. No, but, you know, last time we had a really huge venue. Air conditioning was great, and the whole thing was tremendous. So, of course, you're invited out. We'll be sure to pass the invite along to you and, you know, your audience. Probably, I would say we're shooting for February. I think that's a good, because you know what I'm caught up? I'm like, if we do it earlier than that, I don't think it's a good move to do it during the holidays. But then I'm like, because everybody's traveling for the holidays already. You know, we had people from everywhere. I mean, we had people from Costa Rica, from the Netherlands, Canada, you know, California, everywhere you could think of, people came. And so traveling is a huge part of it. I think it would probably make sense to do it after the holidays. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. So, but yeah, we do that. And then we do a shit ton of episodes of Nephilim Death Squad. So if you want more of this, if you want to hear Christianity from the point of view of people who already trounced through Gnosticism and occultism and all that other shit, then maybe it's for you.
Right on. Raven, thank you so much. We'll definitely be doing this again. Until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all then.